Hey, y'all, welcome to the GI Justin channel. What a day. I'm saying it. I'm saying it loud. I'm banging on the table just to prove it. Huge stories. Huge stories. I've got three big ones to get to today with y'all that I'm going to break down and make some sense of what's going on right now, because there's a lot of shocking stories out there right now that, in my opinion, are just another bunch of things where it's like, wow, that is not something that I would have expected. So, news off the wire is that really, really recently there was a jet basically overflew the air defense zone in Washington, D.C., prompting the Air Force Command there in Washington to launch F-16s, which are fighter jets. They went supersonic in order to catch this thing. So basically, the way the story is kind of unfolding is that the military scrambled these F-16s to intercept a small private jet that basically was not responding to air traffic control, resulting in the death of four people in Virginia. And this basically these sonic booms could be heard all over Washington, D.C. The Department of Homeland Security is coming out and saying that there was never a threat to the public, but they're investigating what caused this aircraft to fly over D.C., triggering basically full military response of four F-16s taking off at supersonic speed, basically being scrambled with live weapons in order to intercept this aircraft. The business jet went down in Montebello, Virginia, the NTSB said, and a lady from Virginia State Police said that emergency responders were at the scene of the crash, and it was obvious there were going to be pretty much no survivors. The company that owns the jet basically has come out and said that this jet, a Cessna Citation, which is basically a corporate jet, a small, um, kind of like I would say probably about an 8-person plane, not what you'd call a big one, but small, economical, and very fast. Basically flew straight down at high speed, causing a large crater of over 150 yards, which kind of goes to make you think that something happened to the pilot and the people on board. Usually, in an instance like this, it's not to throw in a bunch of conjecture, but typically it's something incapacitating them. It's usually a loss of cabin pressure or something that would result in something called hypoxia, which is a lack of oxygen in the blood, causing the pilot and the crew and the passengers to pass out. Investigators left Monday to try to piece together what happened, but 15 minutes after taking off, the pilot was basically given a command to level off at 31,000 feet, and the pilot basically never responded. Basically climbed to about 34,000 feet and more or less continued to basically fly directly through the airspace of the White House, resulting in the scrambling of these two F-16 fighters from Andrews Air Force Base in Maryland, who made contact with the plane basically using maneuvers and flares in an attempt to get the pilot's attention. The pilots basically visually inspected the Cessna, confirming that the pilot was slumped over and basically was unresponsive. And this is something that as a pilot they teach you, is there's this zone in Washington, D.C., and you have to take a class in order to even navigate this airspace. And as part of becoming a pilot, they teach you, hey, if you do something that requires you to be intercepted, here's what you can expect from the intercepting aircraft. And, depending on how crucial it is that they feel they need to intercept you, they may pull even with you, rock their wings, cut across your path, pop flares saying, hey, follow me, or the most dangerous being that they'll rock the wings up and show you like, hey, we got missiles under here. You better cooperate or we may have to use them. And that is one that thankfully I never saw over the course of my career. Basically, they launched these fighter jets, and as soon as they gathered that the pilot was unresponsive, the F-16s and North American Command determined that the Cessna did not pose a threat, and it crashed in Virginia around 3:50 p.m. White House came out and said for sure that it was not shot down, that more than anything, it was clearly the result of something that happened on that airplane, resulting in the pilot and the passengers becoming incapacitated and crashing. The NTSB's come out and said that the wreckage is highly fragmented and it's a very challenging accident site. They hope that they're going to be able to get their hands on some sort of a cockpit voice recorder and cockpit data recorder that'll give more information. But it is highly shocking to know that a plane can get close enough to the White House that it can do that. And more so than anything, that this plane basically proves that it is possible to get close enough to the White House that they have to launch these fighter jets, and they have to go supersonic in order to catch you. And you know, the thing about supersonic, so at sea level, Mach 1, which is basically the speed of sound, is around 650 miles an hour. F-16 is a race car. It is capable of significantly more than that, which is a big reason why you see the F-16 as the aircraft of choice to protect the White House. F-16 has been in news lately because the F-16 is one of the jets that the Ukrainians are asking for from us to help them fight against the Russian military. It's kind of a Swiss Army knife with a gigantic engine. It can do air-to-air, air-to-ground, anything you want it to do. It can do reconnaissance. It is an aircraft that's been around for a long time and will continue to stay with us because it is such a high-performance aircraft. You know, people reporting all over social media, seeing, you know, hearing these sonic booms, all these loud noises, and it's one of those things. You know, they say they could hear these noises up to 30 miles north of Washington, D.C., and it just goes to prove the heightened state of alert that we are under after 9/11 with our military, and especially in terms of Washington, D.C. So that's the first big story I want to talk with y'all about, is that we had to scramble some fighter jets to confirm that this was not a threat, and that's a scary and a big deal, I think, in terms of our national security. So second huge story that I want to talk to you guys about is something that kind of deals with economics. We're going to hit all the bases today. So there are some real shock waves coming across our economy again, and this time it's coming from our West Coast. It appears that in our ports on the West Coast, there are some massive disruptions of work being created by dock workers' unions who disapprove of everything that's going on right now. Basically, a bunch of new actions have halted cargo operations across major West Coast ports, with dock workers basically shutting down the Port of Oakland and hampering the ability to handle some of the busiest trade areas that we have in the United States. Our West Coast accounts for a significant portion. The Port of Long Beach is one of the largest ports in the entire country. The Pacific Maritime Association, which represents West Coast terminal operators, said this past Friday that dock workers were going to stage basically concerted and disruptive actions to either stop or severely disrupt operations stretching from Southern California's Los Angeles and Long Beach container hubs all the way up to Seattle, Washington, in an effort to get better work conditions and get more money. Shipping industry officials are saying that dock workers are failing to show up for work and slowing operations at ports starting basically Thursday afternoon and still continuously. They're moving about half of what is normally operated. Basically, one Long Beach official said some of the terminals are completely stopped with nothing going on, and these disruptions are basically the latest to hit the docks in some huge implications, because so many of our goods come from these ports, and we already see inflation through the roof. What happens when we start seeing all of these goods dying on the docks? You know, all kinds of materials that we get come from foreign countries. We've discussed that, you know, that China and other countries are a huge factor when it comes to what we get in from the West Coast. What about when these items become scarce, driving up prices? Another great way we really don't need prices going up is with stuff dying on the docks in California. The local union representatives of these dock workers said in a statement on their website that they've taken it upon themselves to voice their displeasure with ocean carriers and terminal operators. Basic longshore pay is about $46 an hour, according to them, and they say with bonuses and overtime, they make on average about $200,000. Compensation goes higher with benefits, including health care, and they're saying that they don't believe they're getting a large enough portion of this. Cargo volumes at these docks and other U.S. gateways have fallen sharply over the year, and a big portion of this relates to other methods of transport being used to get our supplies into America because they are tired of seeing all of these issues with dock workers. I mean, if you're making $200,000 a year and they're still not consistently happy with it, what's going to happen with all these goods that are sold at Walmart, Target, small businesses like mine that are trying to come into the country and completely unable? The Retail Industry Leaders Association, which is the retail sector's largest trade group, has voiced alarm that the stoppages are going to cause serious and immediate ripple effects to retailers' abilities to quickly and efficiently deliver for American consumers. That's a serious problem. Like I was just saying, you take companies like Target and Walmart all the way down to companies like mine, where I have goods that come from the West Coast. And in certain instances, I have goods that are brought in, unfortunately, from other nations because America doesn't create these items that I need for my store. So what's going to happen is I'm not going to be able to get them. And what I am going to be able to get is going to be raised in price. With it being raised in price, who do I have to turn that to? Do I pass it on to my customers and raise my prices further exacerbating their desire to not spend as much money with me? Or do I eat the cost, thereby decreasing my margin and hurting my bottom line and my ability to feed my family? It's distressing when you see these guys are making $200,000, and that is even before they start talking about healthcare, and it's still not enough for them. I would be very content to make $200,000 a year. Very content. Maybe no, I'm not going to California. We're not saying that. So, final thing I want to talk with y'all about today, massive situation. And I've held this one to the very last because I want you guys to know about it and know what's happening. A major dam in Ukraine has been destroyed by the Russians. Kherson, Ukraine, a major dam in southern Ukraine was destroyed, flooding villages, endangering crops, and damaging the drinking water supply. Now on both sides of the equation, where the Russians, who were getting all this water, now they don't have access to it either, further exacerbating Russian problems. Ukraine is accusing the Russian forces of blowing up the Kakhovka Dam and hydroelectric station, which sits on the river in an area Moscow has controlled for over a year. Russian officials are blaming Ukrainian bombardment in the area, basically saying that the Ukrainians destroyed their own dam, which also supplies hydroelectricity to a good portion of the area. Makes perfect sense, right? So basically, the Ukrainian and Russian officials are calling it an ecological disaster and a terrorist attack. Basically, Zelensky's calling it the largest man-made environmental disaster in Europe in decades. The the UN Secretary General says it's another devastating consequence of the Russian invasion in Ukraine. And homes are being flooded, completely destroyed, and downstream of the city of Kherson, residents are cursing and being very upset as they have no ability to get water now. Now they're completely without water as we're heading into the summer. A massive nightmare. Both Ukrainian and Russian authorities are basically brought in by train and bus to try to get residents to safety as far as they can. 25,000 people on the Russian side and 17,000 people on the Ukrainian side are being evacuated, and neither side has reported any deaths from the issue. However, electricity and water supplies have been cut off, and a satellite photo basically shows more than 1,900 feet of this bridge is just missing. Doesn't sound to me like it just crumbled on its own. It sounds to me like it was destroyed. The dam break is adding another massive issue to an already gigantic humanitarian nightmare where people are without food. They went over the winter without heat, and now we're going to get into the summer with no water. It's not immediately clear who's destroyed the dam, but both sides obviously are saying that it was the other guy. The defense minister of Russia has charged Ukraine with destroying the dam and saying that they're doing it as an attempt to further make the Russians look bad. It doesn't make a lot of sense why they would destroy their own infrastructure, and basically the Russians are kind of coming out and saying that, my personal opinion, the Ukrainians are ramping up the counteroffensive that they wanted to do to try to push Russia out for good. Well, now with this concern and this issue and all of this water flooding through this area that the Russians control, it's practically impassable, and there's no way that the Ukrainians are going to be able to move through there unless they decide to roll some boats and some submarines in, and I don't think that's highly likely. So the situation as it stands, the counteroffensive is at a standstill, and from the Russian perspective, it makes all the sense in the world to blunt this counteroffensive while they can attempt to recover their forces and get themselves together. It just doesn't make a whole lot of sense for the Ukrainians to have done it, and is another nightmarish factor for where this war is taking both countries. So I'm going to continue to monitor it, and we'll see, obviously, as information comes out about what went on here and how they got to where they got to and how this bridge was destroyed, because it will be figured out, and we will definitely get to the bottom of it. So 3 huge stories with implications across the entire world that we got to today, and I hope you guys got some value out of me breaking them down. Thank you guys for watching the channel and subscribing. Keep subscribing and keep liking the videos. I truly appreciate it, and I want you guys to have an awesome, awesome day. Thanks so much for watching.